Then he was gone. Vilara returned to the command center and watched the battle unfold on the holographic displays. The combined fleet arrived at Keleth just as the Vorm began their attack. 42 ships formed a defensive line between the enemy and the planet. For the first hour, it was a traditional engagement. The Kethrani ships fired from range, trying to thin the Vorn numbers before they got close. But there were too many enemies. The swarm kept coming, wave after wave, their organic ships moving with perfect coordination. Then Daniel did something that no one expected. The Steadfast, Hope and its escort frigates broke formation. They accelerated directly toward the center of the Vorm fleet. Every speaker on every frequency suddenly filled with sound. It was human music, loud and aggressive, mixed with drums and screaming voices. The noise was overwhelming and chaotic, and then the humans started throwing things. Not weapons, not missiles. They launched unmanned drones, cargo containers, even empty escape pods rigged with explosives. They threw everything they had into the Vorn swarm, creating confusion where the enemy needed order. The Vorm relied on their swarm tactics, on perfect coordination. The humans gave them chaos instead. When the Vorn regrouped and focused their fire on the Steadfast Hope, Daniel did the impossible. He flew the carrier directly into the enemy flagship. Shields forward, guns blazing. The collision was visible even on the long-range sensors. The Vorn command ship exploded in a ball of fire that took a dozen other ships with it. The swarm lost its coordination. The Kethrani fleet, seeing their chance, surged forward. What had been a desperate defense became a crushing victory. The remaining Vorn ships fled into deep space, leaving behind the wreckage of their shattered fleet. Keleth was saved. 2 million lives, preserved because one human had refused to accept the impossible. Search teams found a single escape pod drifting in the debris field. Inside was Daniel Hart, badly burned and barely breathing, but alive. Velara was waiting when they brought him to the medical bay. She looked at his broken body, at the bandages covering half his face, and she felt something crack open inside her chest. When he finally woke 3 days later, she was sitting beside his bed. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you throw your life away for a world that is not yours?" Daniel looked at her with his one unbandaged eye. His voice was rough and weak, but his words were clear. "Because someone had to. Because humans do not know how to do nothing when people are dying. Because every life matters, even if it is not human." Velara took his hand. She did not know why. She only knew that she needed to hold on to something real. "You are a fool, Daniel Hart." "Probably," he agreed. "But I am still here." For the first time since she had met him, Velara smiled. "Yes, you are. And I am beginning to understand why that matters." The news of the Battle of Keleth spread across the galaxy within days. The Vorn had been undefeated for centuries. They had destroyed entire civilizations. And a single human officer with a handful of ships had broken their advance. Daniel Hart had become a legend. But lying in that hospital bed, holding the hand of his Kethrani wife, he looked like nothing more than a tired man who had finally found something worth living for. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Keleth, and Daniel Hart had become the most famous human in the galaxy. His face appeared on news broadcasts across 100 worlds. Children played games pretending to be him, charging into imaginary enemy fleets. Military academies studied his tactics. Politicians spoke his name in speeches about courage and sacrifice. The quiet man who had once been invisible in the halls of Kethros, Prime was now recognized everywhere he went. But Velara saw what the others did not see. She saw the weight that Daniel carried. Late at night, when the admirals and reporters had gone away, Daniel sat alone in the observation deck. Velara often found him there, staring at the stars with an expression that broke her heart. She knew what he was thinking about. the crew of the Steadfast Hope, the pilots who had followed him into the swarm. 347 humans had died under his command that day. "You cannot save everyone," Vilara said one night, sitting beside him in the darkness. "I know," Daniel replied, "but I can remember them. Every name, every face. That is the least I can do. Does it help?" "No, but it is what I owe them." The Galactic Council had given Daniel a promotion. He was now a full commander, in charge of a joint task force made up of ships from many different species. Human volunteers had flooded the recruitment centers after Keleth. Everyone wanted to serve with the hero who had beaten the Vorn. But Daniel did not act like a hero. He treated every soldier under his command with the same respect, whether they were human or Kethrani or something else entirely. He learned their names. He asked about their families. He made sure they had proper food and rest. And when they went into battle, he was always at the front, never asking anyone to take a risk he would not take himself. Vilara began attending his strategy meetings. At first, she told herself it was her duty as his bonded partner. Then she admitted it was curiosity. And finally, she accepted the truth. She wanted to understand him. She wanted to know how a creature who lived such a short life could burn so bright. What she discovered amazed her. Daniel's mind worked differently from any Kethrani she had ever known. Her people valued caution. They planned for decades, even centuries. They conserved their resources and avoided unnecessary risks. Daniel did none of these things. He made decisions in moments. He trusted his instincts. He saw opportunities where others saw only danger. "Your plan is insane," Admiral Rothick said during one strategy session. Daniel had proposed attacking a Vorn supply station deep in enemy territory. "The risks are too great. We could lose half our fleet." "We could," Daniel agreed. "Or we could cut off supplies to 3 Vorn battle groups and save a dozen worlds from attack. The enemy expects us to be cautious. They expect us to defend. If we attack, we take away their greatest advantage. And what advantage is that? Time. The Vorn have all the time in the universe. They can wait. They can rebuild. They can attack again and again until we run out of ships. But if we force them to react to us, we control the pace of the war. We make them fight on our terms." Rothick shook his head. "This is madness. Human madness." "Perhaps," Vilara heard herself say. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. But human madness won the Battle of Keleth. "Perhaps we should listen." The silence that followed was heavy. High Lord Soren, who had been watching from his seat of honor, looked at his daughter with surprise. But Daniel simply met her eyes and nodded once, a small gesture of thanks that meant more to her than any grand speech could have. The attack on the Vorn supply station was a complete success. Daniel's fleet struck hard and fast, destroying the station before the enemy could respond. 3 Vorn battle groups were stranded without fuel or ammunition. A dozen worlds that had expected invasion were suddenly safe. The legend of Daniel Hart grew larger. Vilara noticed something else growing too. The bond between her and Daniel had changed. What had started as a cold political arrangement had become something warmer. They talked now, really talked, about their hopes and fears and dreams. Daniel told her about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests of humanity's home. Vilara told him about Kethros Prime, about the crystal mountains and the singing winds that swept across the plains at sunset. "I would like to see your world someday," Daniel said one evening. "The real world, not just the military installations." "And I would like to see Earth," Vilara replied, "to understand where you come from." Daniel smiled. It was a rare thing, that smile, and it transformed his entire face. "Maybe when the war is over, we could take a real vacation. No admirals. No reporters. Just us. I would like that." They were sitting in their shared quarters, closer than they had ever sat before. Velara realized that she was no longer counting the days until she could escape this arrangement. She was counting the moments she got to spend with him. "Daniel," she said softly, "when I first met you, I thought you were nothing. A political tool. A burden I had to bear. And now? Now I know I was wrong. You are the bravest person I have ever met. Not because you do not feel fear. Because you feel it and fight anyway. Because you carry the weight of all those lives and you still keep going." Daniel looked at her with those quiet eyes. But they were not empty anymore. They were full of something warm and bright. "Velara, I need to tell you something. When I came here, I did not care if I lived or died. I had lost everything. I was just going through the motions, waiting for the end. And now?" He reached out and took her hand. His skin was warm against her silver fingers. "Now I have something to live for again. Someone to come home to. Someone who sees me, really sees me. Not the legend or the hero, but just the man." Velara felt tears forming in her eyes. Her people rarely cried. It was considered a weakness. But at that moment, she did not care. "I see you, Daniel Hart," she whispered. "And I am grateful every day that you came into my life." The war was far from over. The Vorn were still out there, regrouping and rebuilding. More battles would come. More lives would be lost. But sitting there in the quiet of their quarters, holding hands and watching the stars, Velara felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Whatever darkness lay ahead, they would face it together. Human and Kethrani, husband and wife, two hearts beating as one against the endless void. The galaxy might remember Daniel Hart. The great hall of Kethra's Prime was filled with silence. Hundreds of alien dignitaries stood in perfect rows, their silver skin glowing under the light of 3 moons that shone through the crystal ceiling. This was the most important day in the history of 2 civilizations. And Lady Velara hated every moment of it. She stood at the center of the hall, wearing the ceremonial robes of House Kethrani. Her family had ruled the Orion sector for 10,000 years. They had built empires. They had conquered stars. And now, to save their people from the Vorn Empire, she was being given to a human. Velara looked at the man standing across from her. His name was Daniel Hart. He was a lieutenant commander in Earth's Space Navy. He had brown hair, average height, and eyes that seemed to watch everything without showing any emotion. By the standards of her people, he was nothing. Humans had only been traveling through space for 100 years. They were young. They were fragile. They died so quickly that Velara could not understand how they accomplished anything at all. But humanity had something the galaxy needed. They bred fast. They adapted to any environment. And they fought without any fear of death. The Vorn Empire was spreading across the stars like a disease, and the Kethrani needed allies. So Velara's father, High Lord Sarn, had made a deal. Human ships would join the Kethrani fleet. Human soldiers would fight beside Kethrani warriors. And to seal this alliance, his daughter would bond with a human officer. The ceremony was short. Daniel signed the documents with a steady hand. He bowed to her family with proper respect. He spoke only when required and said nothing more. When the last words were spoken and the bond was complete, Velara felt nothing but cold emptiness in her chest. Her father approached her afterward, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "You have done well," he said. "This alliance will save our people." "I have done my duty," Velara replied. Nothing more. That night, she went to the quarters she would now share with her human husband. She expected him to make demands. She expected arrogance or perhaps unwanted affection. She prepared herself for a fight. Instead, Daniel was sitting by the window, looking at the stars. When she entered, he stood and gave her a small nod. "I know you did not choose this," he said. His voice was quiet and calm. "I will stay out of your way. You do not have to pretend this is anything more than what it is." Vilara did not know how to respond. She had prepared for many things, but not for this simple acceptance. "You do not wish to claim your rights as my bonded partner?" Daniel shook his head. "I'm not here for that. I'm here because my people need this alliance too. The Vorn killed my family 3 years ago. If working with the Kethrani helps stop them, then that's enough for me." He returned to the window and said nothing more. Velara stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching him. Then she went to her own room and closed the door. The months that followed were strange. Daniel was like a ghost in her life. He attended military meetings with the Kethrani admirals, but he rarely spoke. He trained alone in the combat simulators for hours every day. He ate human food that smelled strange and read books on a small device. He never complained. He never demanded anything. He simply existed in her space without taking up any room. Vilara found herself watching him sometimes, trying to understand what he was. Her handmaiden, Isha, noticed her curiosity. "The human is strange," Isha said one evening while brushing Vilara's long silver hair. "He does not try to gain power. He does not seek status among the court. What does he want?" "I do not know," Vilara admitted. "Perhaps humans want different things than we do. Perhaps they want nothing at all. Perhaps they are as empty as they appear." But Vilara was not so sure. She had seen Daniel in the training rooms. She had watched him fight against holographic enemies with a focus and intensity that surprised her. There was something burning inside him, something he kept hidden behind those quiet eyes. She learned small pieces of his history from the military reports. Daniel had grown up on Mars, one of Earth's colony worlds. When he was 19 years old, the Vorn had attacked. They had destroyed his home. They had killed his wife and his 2 young children. Daniel had survived only because he was serving on a ship that was away from the planet during the attack. After that day, he had enlisted in every dangerous mission he could find. He had survived 6 battles where every other member of his team had died. His commanders called him lucky. His fellow soldiers called him cursed. But he kept fighting, again and again, as if he was searching for something he could never find. One night, Vilara found him in the observation deck, staring at the stars. She did not know why she approached him. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was something else. "You do not sleep," she said. Daniel did not turn around. "Neither do you. I have duties that keep me awake." "What keeps you awake?" He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Memories." Vilara moved to stand beside him. The stars stretched out before them like scattered diamonds on black velvet. "You lost your family to the Vorn." "Yes, and you blame yourself for surviving." Daniel finally looked at her. There was surprise in his eyes and something else. Something that looked almost like pain. "How did you know that?" "Because I see how you fight in the simulators. You are not trying to win. You are trying to die in a way that matters." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel did not deny them. He simply turned back to the stars. "My people believe that death in battle is the greatest honor," Vilara said softly. "But I have always thought that living takes more courage than dying. Anyone can fall. It takes true strength to keep standing." Daniel said nothing, but something in his posture changed. The tension in his shoulders seemed to ease just a little. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. And for the first time since her bonding ceremony, Vilara felt something other than cold duty. She did not know what it was. She was not sure she wanted to know, but as she looked at the quiet human beside her, she could not shake the feeling that there was more to Daniel Hart than anyone had seen. Something was waiting inside him, something that the galaxy was not ready for, and she, for reasons she could not explain, wanted to see what it was. The alarm woke Velara in the middle of the night. Red lights flashed through her quarters as a cold voice announced that all senior officers were to report to the command center immediately. She dressed quickly and ran through the corridors of the Kethrani flagship, her heart pounding with fear she had not felt in years. The command center was chaos. Holographic displays showed a map of the border region, and what Velara saw made her blood turn cold. 300 Vorn warships had appeared near Kelith, a peaceful farming world with 2 million Kethrani civilians. The enemy fleet was already moving toward the planet. Admiral Rothick stood at the center of the room, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical data. He was the most experienced commander in the Kethrani Navy, and even he looked worried. The Vorn arrived through an unknown jump point, he said. We have no idea how they found it. Our patrol fleet in the area consists of only 30 ships. What about reinforcements? Someone asked. The nearest battle group is 3 weeks away. By then, Kelith will be gone. Velara felt sick. 2 million people. Families, children, elders who had never harmed anyone. The Vorn did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They consumed everything in their path and left nothing behind but empty worlds. We have one other option, a Kethrani officer said. The human carrier Steadfast Hope is currently in the sector. They could reach Kelith in 6 hours. Admiral Rothick made a sound of disgust. 1 carrier and 12 small frigates against 300 Vorn ships? That is not an option. That is suicide. Then we should contact them anyway, a quiet voice said. Let them decide for themselves. Everyone turned. Daniel Hart stood at the edge of the room. Velara had not even noticed him enter. He was wearing his human uniform, and his face was calm and unreadable as always. Rothick's mandibles clicked with annoyance. You are here as a political gesture, human. This is not your concern. 2 million people are about to die, Daniel said. That makes it everyone's concern. The Admiral stepped closer to Daniel, using his greater height to look down at the human. And what would you suggest? That we throw away our ships in a hopeless battle? The Vorn cannot be defeated with the forces we have. The mathematics do not allow it. The Vorn have never fought humans, Daniel replied. They do not know what we do when we are afraid. And what is that? Daniel met the Admiral's eyes without flinching. We stop being afraid. We get angry. The room fell silent. Velara watched the exchange with growing interest. There was something different about Daniel now. The quiet ghost she had lived with for months was gone. In his place stood something harder and sharper, in the end. They made contact with the Steadfast Hope. The human captain, a woman named Commander Lisa Cole, listened to the situation and made her decision in less than a minute. Her ship and its escorts would join the Kethrani patrol fleet. Together, they would have 42 ships against 300. Daniel requested permission to transfer to the human carrier. Admiral Rothick granted it immediately. Velara suspected the Admiral hoped the human would die in the coming battle and solve several political problems at once. Before Daniel left, Velara stopped him in the corridor. You are going to die out there, she said. Probably, he agreed. Then why are you going? Daniel looked at her with those quiet eyes. But now she could see something burning behind them. A fire that had been waiting for fuel. Because someone has to try. Because those 2 million people deserve a chance. Because I would rather die fighting than live knowing I did nothing. He started to walk away, then stopped. Velara, if I do not come back, tell your people something for me. Tell them that humans are not the weak creatures they think we are. Tell them that we may live short lives, but we burn bright. Tell them that when the darkness comes, we are the ones who light the fire. Flying straight into the largest hive ship, Velara watched from the command center as his signal disappeared in a blinding flash of light. The hive mind shattered. 7,000 Vorn ships suddenly lost their coordination. The Allied fleet surged forward, and the battle became a rout. Kethros Prime was saved, but Daniel Hart was gone. Velara stood at the viewport, staring at the debris field where her husband had vanished, and she felt her heart turn to ice. She had told him she loved him. She had promised herself they would have time. And now that time was gone. They searched the debris field for 4 days. Velara refused to leave the command deck. She stood at her post hour after hour, scanning every fragment of wreckage, every signal, every piece of metal that drifted through the void where Daniel had disappeared. Her officers begged her to rest. Her handmaiden brought food that she did not eat. But she would not move. She had promised him they would survive together. She had told him she loved him. And now she searched for him among the ashes of his sacrifice. On the 4th day, a Kethrani rescue ship found a single emergency beacon. It was weak, barely detectable, coming from a damaged pressure suit drifting in the cold darkness. Inside that suit, more dead than alive, was Daniel Hart. The medical teams said it was impossible. His fighter had been at the center of a nuclear explosion. Nothing should have survived. But somehow, in the last second before impact, Daniel had ejected. The blast had thrown him clear and knocked him unconscious. His suit had sealed automatically and activated its emergency beacon. Humans, the doctors learned, had a remarkable capacity for survival. Their bodies could endure trauma that would kill most other species. They simply refused to die. Velara was waiting when they brought him to the medical bay. She looked at his broken body, wrapped in bandages and connected to machines that fought to keep him breathing. Half his face was burned. His left arm was shattered. His lungs had been damaged by the vacuum of space. But he was alive. Against all odds, against all reason, he was alive. "You stubborn fool," she whispered, tears streaming down her silver cheeks. "You wonderful, impossible fool." The doctors said he might never wake up. The damage to his body was too severe. His brain had been without oxygen for too long. They prepared Velara for the worst, but Velara knew something the doctors did not. She knew Daniel Hart. She knew that he did not give up. She knew that somewhere inside that broken body, he was fighting his way back to her. She stayed by his side every day. She read to him from human books she had found in his quarters. She played the strange human music he liked. She talked to him about their future, about the places they would go and the things they would see when he recovered. And one morning, 3 months after the battle, Daniel opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was her face. The first word he spoke was her name, Velara. She took his hand and held it against her cheek. "You came back. I promised," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I promised we would have time." The galaxy celebrated when they learned that Daniel Hart had survived. He was already a legend after Keleth. After Kethros Prime, he became something more. A symbol. An icon. Some called him the war deity of Earth, a being who had challenged death itself and won. Temples on distant worlds displayed his image. Children of 100 species grew up hearing stories of the human who would not fall. But Daniel rejected all of it. When he was finally strong enough to leave the medical bay, he refused every honor they tried to give him. He did not want statues or temples. He did not want parades or celebrations. "I am not a god," he told the Galactic Council. "I am just a man who fought for the people he loved. Any of you soldiers would have done the same." He returned to Kethros Prime with Velara and took a quiet position as a military advisor. He spent his days training young officers, teaching them the lessons he had learned in battle. He taught them that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. He taught them that every life mattered, that no one should be left behind. He taught them that victory meant nothing if you lost yourself along the way. And in the evenings, he sat with Velara on the balcony of their home, watching the twin suns set over the crystal mountains. "You could have ruled the galaxy," she said one night, as the sky turned colors no human word could describe. "Every species would have followed you. You could have been emperor of all known space." Daniel shook his head. "I never wanted to rule anything. I just wanted to protect the people I love, to make sure no one else has to lose what I lost." He looked at her with those quiet eyes, the same eyes that had once seemed so empty, but now were full of warmth. "That is enough. You are enough." Velara leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "When my father first told me about the arrangement, I thought my life was over. I thought I was being sacrificed for politics. I never imagined I would find something real." "Neither did I," Daniel admitted. "I came here hoping to die in battle. I found something worth living for instead." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. The war was over, at least for now. The fragments of the Vorn hive mind were scattered across the galaxy, too broken to pose a threat. Other challenges would come, as they always did. New enemies would rise. Old alliances would be tested. But for now, there was peace. There was hope. There was love. "I want to take you to Earth," Daniel said suddenly. "I want to show you the world I came from. The oceans and the forests and the cities full of people who have never seen an alien in their lives. I want them to meet you, Velara. I want them to know that the galaxy is not as scary as they think. And I want to take you to the singing plains," Velara replied. "I want you to hear the winds that carry the voices of our ancestors. I want to walk with you through the crystal caves where my grandmother told me stories when I was young." "Then we will do both," Daniel said. "We will see all of it. Everything the galaxy has to offer. Together." He put his arm around her, and she nestled closer to him. The sky darkened to purple, then to black, and the stars stretched out before them like an infinite sea of light dot in the years that followed. Daniel and Velara became something more than heroes. They became a symbol of what was possible when different peoples came together. Their story was told in schools and homes across 1,000 worlds. The human who married for duty and found love. The Kethrani who saw past her prejudice and discovered a kindred soul. Daniel lived to be 97 years old, a remarkable age for a human who had survived so much. When he finally passed, peacefully in his sleep with Velara's hand in his, the galaxy mourned. A day of silence was declared across all known space. Ships lowered their flags. Soldiers stood at attention. And billions of people, human and alien alike, remembered the quiet man who had changed everything. Velara lived another 69 years after him. She spent that time making sure his legacy would never be forgotten. She wrote books about their life together. She spoke at academies and councils. She raised their grandchildren to carry on the values Daniel had taught them. And when her time finally came, she was buried beside him on Kethra's Prime, in a tomb that looked out over the crystal mountains and the twin suns she had watched with him so many times. The inscription on their tomb reads simply, "Here lie two hearts that found each other across the void. One human, one Kethrani, together forever as they were in life." The galaxy would remember Daniel Hart as a legend, a war deity, a hero who defied impossible odds. But Velara knew the truth. She knew that beneath all the fame and glory, he had been just a man who had lost everything and found the courage to love again. A man who had taught the galaxy that the shortest lives could burn the brightest. And somewhere among the stars, she knew he was waiting for her. Patient as always, quiet as always, ready to take her hand and walk with her into whatever came next. Together forever, as they were always meant to be. Art as a legend. But Vilara knew the truth. He was just a man who refused to give up. A man who had found love in the most unlikely place. And that, she thought, was the most heroic thing of all. The Vorn had learned to fear humanity, and fear made them desperate. Vilara stood on the bridge of the Kathrani command ship, watching the sensor displays with growing horror. 7,000 Vorn warships had appeared at the edge of the Kethra system. 7,000. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, and they were heading straight for homeworld. "They are sending a message," Admiral Rothick said, his voice heavy with despair. "They want to show the galaxy what happens to anyone who stands with humans." The Galactic Council had already begun arguing about what to do. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others wanted to evacuate what they could and abandon the planet. A few, very few, spoke of fighting. High Lord Soren called an emergency meeting of the ruling families. Vilara attended, standing beside Daniel, who watched the proceedings with his usual quiet intensity. "We have 2,000 ships," Soren said, his 4 eyes scanning the assembled nobles. "The humans and our other allies might add another 500. Against 7,000 Vorn, those numbers mean nothing. We must consider other options." "What options?" one of the nobles asked. "The Vorn do not negotiate." "They might," Soren replied slowly, "if we give them what they want." A cold silence fell over the chamber. Vilara felt her stomach turn as she understood what her father was suggesting. "You mean the humans," she said. Her voice was steady, but inside she was screaming. "You want to hand over the humans to save ourselves." Soren did not meet her eyes. "Daniel Hart is one man. The humans in our space number only a few 100,000. Our people number in the billions. The mathematics are clear. Mathematics." Vilara stepped forward, her silver skin flushing with anger. "You would calculate the value of lives like counting coins. You would betray our allies, break our sacred oaths, and hand innocent people over to be slaughtered. And you think that will save us?" "Vilara, you do not understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that the Vorn will not stop with the humans. Today they demand Earth's people. Tomorrow they will demand the Valori. Then the Meridian Collective. Then us. One by one, they will consume everyone who ever stood against them, because we were too afraid to stand together." The chamber erupted in argument. Voices rose and fell, some supporting Soren, others backing Vilara. Through it all, Daniel stood silent, watching with those calm, patient eyes. Finally, he spoke. His voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through the noise like a blade. "I will not ask anyone to die for me," he said. "If surrendering the humans will truly save your world, I will go willingly. I have no right to demand that billions of Kathrani die for the sake of thousands of my people." Vilara turned to him, her heart breaking. "Daniel, no, but I do not believe it will save you," he continued. "The Vorn are not here for revenge. They are here because they have finally understood what humanity represents. We are proof that the swarm can be defeated. We are hope, and the Vorn cannot allow hope to exist." He walked to the center of the chamber, and every eye followed him. "If you surrender us, you will buy yourselves a few years at most. The Vorn will rebuild their strength and return. And next time, there will be no humans to stand beside you. No one to light the fire when the darkness comes." High Lord Soren stared at the human who had married his daughter. "You would have us fight a battle we cannot win. I would have you fight a battle that must be fought. Win or lose, this is the moment that will define your civilization. Will you be the people who betrayed their allies and died slowly, piece by piece? Or will you be the people who stood their ground and showed the galaxy what courage means?" The debate continued for hours. But in the end, Kethros chose to fight. Daniel Hart was given command of the combined defense fleet. 2,000 Kathrani ships. 500 human and allied vessels. 2,500 against 7,000. Impossible odds, again. On the night before the battle, Valara found Daniel in their quarters. He was sitting on the floor, holding a small photograph on his tablet. She recognized the image now. His wife and children, the family he had lost to the Vorn years ago. She sat beside him without speaking. After a long moment, he said, "I used to talk to them. Before every battle. I would tell them I was coming to join them soon. And now?" Daniel looked at her, and his eyes were bright with tears he refused to let fall. "Now I tell them I have to stay a little longer. There is someone here who needs me. Someone I cannot leave behind." Valara took his hand. "Daniel, I need you to know something. Whatever happens tomorrow, I do not regret anything. Not the arrangement. Not the bond. Not a single moment I have spent with you. Valara, I love you," she said. The words came out before she could stop them, and she realized they were true. Completely true. "I love you, Daniel Hart. And if we die tomorrow, I want you to know that you gave me something I never thought I would have. You gave me hope." Daniel pulled her close and held her tight. His voice was rough when he spoke. "Then we will not die tomorrow. We will fight. We will win. And we will have all the time we need to build something beautiful together." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the darkness, drawing strength from the warmth of their connection. The Battle of Kethros. Prime began at dawn. The Vorn fleet moved like a living thing. Billions of warriors coordinated by a single hive mind. They advanced in perfect formation, overwhelming the outer defenses with sheer numbers. The Allied fleet fought back with everything they had, but it was not enough. Slowly, inevitably, they were pushed back. On the second day, the orbital platforms fell. On the third day, the Vorn reached the final defensive line around the planet itself. Millions of Kethrani civilians looked up at the sky and waited for the end dot. And then Daniel Hart did something impossible. He broadcast a message to every ship in both fleets. His voice was calm, but it carried across the void like thunder. "I am Daniel Hart of Earth. I am a husband. I was a father. I am a soldier. You have taken everything from me, and I am still standing. You have thrown the might of your empire against us, and we are still standing. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not break. We do not surrender. And today, we do not die alone." The human ships formed a wedge and charged into the heart of the Vorn Armada. Not to die, to cut through. Daniel had identified the Vorn's secret weakness, the massive bioships at the center of the swarm that linked the hive mind together. If those ships were destroyed, the swarm would fall into chaos. The wedge punched through the enemy lines. Ships died by the dozens, but the survivors kept pushing forward. Daniel led the final assault personally, his fighter loaded with nuclear warheads,